Eric, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
That's NPR's Eric Deggans. It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
WNYC is supported by the New York Phil, presenting holiday traditions throughout December, like Handel's Messiah and Holiday Brass, plus Marvel Studios' Black Panther in Concert, an event combining film and orchestra. Tickets at nyphil.org/holidays.
On the next All of It, singer-songwriter Juliana Hatfield, the beloved indie rock luminary, made a name for herself writing and recording her own work. But she has a surprising side gig, making tribute albums. On the next All of It, she joins us for a listening party for her latest, Juliana Hatfield Sings ELO. And Wait, Don't Tell Me host, Peter Sagal. I'm Allison Stewart. Join me for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
Interest rate cuts are likely, but don't expect one wrapped under the tree this season.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Affinity, provider of the CRM for the private capital relationship economy. Affinity knows who has the best relationship with the right startup. Affinity.co/marketplace. And by C3 Generative AI, verified traceable answers, secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free. Learn more at c3.ai.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. America's central bankers have left interest rates unchanged. At a news conference yesterday, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell welcomed inflation coming down closer to the Fed's 2% target. But for interest rates to come down, the calendar will have to say 2024. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer was at the Powell briefing.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell says inflation is still too high. By some measures, it's still above 3%, but it's a delicate balancing act. The Fed raised interest rates to slow the economy and tamp down inflation. Powell says now the Fed has to be careful not to overdo it and keep rates too high for too long.
We're aware of the risk that we would hang on too long. We know that that's a risk, and we're very focused on not making that mistake.
In fact, the Fed issued new economic projections that point to at least 3 interest rate cuts next year and more in 2025. Powell also said the conventional wisdom that it's hardest to get the so-called last mile of the stickiest inflation down may not apply right now.
We just don't know. Inflation keeps coming down. The labor market keeps getting back into balance. It's so far so good, although we kind of assume that it will get harder from here, but so far it hasn't.
But that doesn't mean it won't get harder. Powell made it clear it would be premature to cut rates right away and declare victory over inflation. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
The bond market soared on that press conference yesterday, pulling the benchmark 10-year interest rate below 4% for the first time since July turned to August. Average 30-year fixed-rate mortgages are below 7% today, 6.82 using Mortgage News Daily's calculation. If you locked in an 8% in October, sorry about that. As for stocks, let's do those numbers. Driven by the prospect of lower rates, the Dow closed above 37,000 for the first time, up 1.4% yesterday. It's up nearly 12% this year. The Nasdaq went up 1.4% yesterday, is up 42% this year so far. S&P 500 up 23% since New Year's.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab knows that investors want control of their financial future. That's why when it comes to wealth management, Schwab is dedicated to giving investors more choices. More at schwab.com. And by Paychex, where HR, insurance benefits, and payroll integrate into one platform. Whether 2 or 2,000 employees, Paychex can help make HR simple for businesses and employees. And by UiPath, providing organizations the UiPath AI-powered business automation platform. More at uipath.com/marketplace. UiPath, the foundation of innovation.
The Brits, ahead of the Second World War, had that poster, keep calm and carry on. When it comes to financial market messes, financial planning, or even getting through the holidays, here's an argument that it is the panic, not the calm, that's especially instructive. Farnoosh Torabi is a journalist, personal finance expert, and author of a new book called A Healthy State of Panic. She spoke to our Nova Safo about turning stress and panic to our advantage on money matters.
I can tell you I've had several friends over the last year and a half or so come up to me and go, do I need to take all my money out of the stock market? What do I do? They were panicking. What is a healthy way to sit with panic when you are in the type of volatile economic conditions that we are now?
So it's important to first acknowledge that what you're feeling is perhaps normal, but the real healthy move beyond that is to a few things I would offer. One is to examine what it is that you actually want to protect. What is it that is also specifically making you afraid? Is it the actual volatility? Is it that you don't have maybe the knowledge to be able to really grasp the nature of the stock market? Because I think oftentimes when fear shows up in our financial lives, it's really a nudge to get more educated. Fear loves to live where there is a gap in knowledge, in understanding. And so that might be the next healthy move.
If you were giving people tips for gaining more financial literacy, what would that look like? What are some concrete steps there?
I think what's exciting is that there are so many different ways to learn, whether it's listening. So there's podcasts, there are books, of course, there are websites and blogs, and of course, social media, which I would caution a little bit. Make sure that if you're following somebody, that first and foremost, they're educating you, they're not biased, they're not selling you, crypto and other sorts of tricky and confusing assets, but that they're really there to bring you the education, the facts, and the knowledge. And there are many people out there that do that, but it may require a little bit of researching. Sometimes I say each and every one of us, we're all experts in finance. I know that may sound insane considering we may not feel that way. We've all navigated so many things in our financial lives. Let's start sharing that. And not because we want to mimic or copy paste, but because it can be inspirational or interesting or educational. And that's free. I think that we have these resources and they're so underleveraged.
How do you know when you've arrived at a, healthy relationship with money? What does that look like?
I'm not going to say there's this promised land where you're going to wake up one day and you'll never have any financial worries or fears. I think it's an ongoing working relationship, but I think having these tools to know how to continue to feel in charge of your financial life. I think that's ultimately the goal. You can have a beautiful spreadsheet and all the numbers look great. You can have a well-paying job, but if you're not feeling confident, if you're dealing with false narratives around money because you grew up around that as a kid, this is a lot of the stuff as adults we continue to deal with, and it shows up in our financial lives. That's why I wanted to write A Healthy State of Panic. I've written many other books about the technicals of personal finance, but this one really was the one that I wanted to write because it was at the intersection of money and our mental health and our overall well-being. This is the stuff that sometimes takes the extra work, but it's the foundation. And once you can sort of solve for that, the math's much better.
Yeah, which is helpful. Personal finance expert and journalist Farnoosh Torabi out with her new book, A Healthy State of Panic. You can hear more from our conversation at marketplace.org. Farnoosh, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Nova.
And in New York, I'm David Brancaccio. You've been listening to the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.